Hello, I'm Chris Mostert. I want to share a few biblical statements about life before Adam and Eve. After Adam and Eve fell into sin, they left their God-given habitat. Initially, they had two sons, namely Cain and Abel. And Cain murdered his brother, and God commanded him to leave his family. Then Abel shared his fear toward God according to these words in Genesis 4 verse 14. Surely you have driven me out this day from the face of the ground. I shall be hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond on the earth, and it will happen that anyone who finds me will kill me. The conclusion is, Cain knew there were other people and was afraid. The result is, God gave him a mark and the assurance, according to these words in Genesis 4 verse 15. Therefore, whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark on Cain, lest anyone finding him should kill him. Cain left and moved to the land Nod, but nowhere in the Bible we read that a wife and children went with him. But in Genesis 4 verse 17 we read that his wife conceived and bore him a son. Cain definitely did not marry his sister. The reason is, in Leviticus 20 verse 17, God commanded that such a man and his sister should both be killed. Now, the modern scientific statement, there are indications from anthropological, geological, and paleontological discoveries and research, as well as according to the Word, that other human beings existed before Adam and Eve. Where do we find evidences in the Word that there were a civilization on earth before Adam and Eve? The answer is during the reign of Lucifer on earth. The earth that God created according to Genesis 1 verse 1 was initially placed under the dominion of Lucifer. Ezekiel 28 verse 12 to 15. Thus says the Lord God, you were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked back and forth in the midst of fiery stones. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created. But at a certain stage, Lucifer harbored pride in his heart towards God, as he said, according to Isaiah 14 verse 1, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will be like the Most High. We read then that Lucifer fell from the heaven. Isaiah 14 verse 12. How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. How you are cut down to the ground. Presumably, the earth was destroyed after Lucifer's revolt against God. Jeremiah confirmed it in Jeremiah 4 verse 23 to 26. I beheld the earth, and indeed it was without form and void. What Jeremiah saw about the fall of Lucifer is confirmed with the same explanation in Genesis 1 verse 2. The earth was without form and void. The nearly distinction of life was as a result of Lucifer's fall. Here is some evidences of life before Adam and Eve in the Bible. Lucifer was degraded in front of nations. Isaiah 14 verse 12. How you are cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations. A few examples of old artwork during that time, before Adam and Eve, is the following. An image of a woman carved out of a piece of mammoth tooth was discovered in Germany. The age of this discovery is about 35,000 years old. It is known as the Venus of Hohlefels. The artwork of another image was found in 1892 near Brasempouy in France. It is more or less 25,000 years old. It's called the Venus Brasempouy. And if you look here at the bottom, Adam and Eve lived about 6,000 years ago. And this image is 25,000 years old. What was the result of Lucifer's fall? Lucifer was degraded in front of kings. Ezekiel 28 verse 17. I cast you to the ground, I laid you before kings, that they might gaze at you. People died. Jeremiah 4 verse 26. I beheld, and indeed there was no man. Cultivated gardens were destroyed. Jeremiah 4 verse 26. I beheld, and indeed the fruitful land was a wilderness. Cities were demolished. Jeremiah 4 verse 26. And all its cities were broken down at the presence of the Lord by his fierce anger. Continents were destroyed by water. Psalm 104 verse 6. You covered it with the deep as with a garment. The water stood above the mountains. The earth was destroyed by earthquakes. Psalm 104 verse 7 and 8. At your rebuke they fled. At the voice of your thunder they hastened away. They went up over the mountains. They went down into the valleys, to the place which you founded for them. The earth was covered in darkness. Jeremiah 4 verse 23 and verse 24. I beheld the earth, and indeed it was without form and void, and the heavens they had no light. I beheld the mountains, and indeed they trembled, and all the hills moved back and forth. The conclusion is Genesis 1 verse 2 described the state of the earth after the fall of Lucifer, and the result was devastating disasters. Genesis 1 verse 2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Is the same words that we find also in Jeremiah 4 verse 23 and 24. There is much more divine given revelations in my book, The Origin of Life. Please visit my webpage or buy my book, The Origin of Life. Please use the following links of Amazon or Kindle. You can also search on Amazon's website or visit my website, chrismostert.org. I hope you enjoyed, and may God bless you.